live your life with a sense of urgency. If not now, when? And remember that what you think about is the most powerful thing. Protect your mindset. Feed your mindset on a daily basis. It doesn't change overnight. It changes slowly and incrementally. But if you'll do the daily work of feeding your mind with positive stuff, cramming out, don't worry about trying to replace negative habits. You can basically crowd out negative habits by constantly pouring in positive habits and positive thoughts. And over time, I think you'll get a very significant return on that.
Welcome to Real Talk with Gary. If you are listening to this show, that means you are either searching or ready to make a financial change in your life. This show is not only about real estate investing, but also the importance of mindset and the roadmap to a better, healthier life. Learn the daily routines of successful entrepreneurs and the latest market strategies and trends to stay ahead of the curve. Ready for some down-to-earth, north-of-the-border Canadian talk? Here's your host, Gary Hibbert.
All right, welcome back. And today I got my good friend Harry James in the studio with me. I always enjoy sitting down with Harry. He's actually come out a couple times now as well too to do presentations to our group. He's great. He's a mentor of mine as well too, and he's always just got some great lessons and things that you can apply to your life on a daily basis. And so we dive into that. Like, how do you protect your mindset with everything that's happening in the world today, and especially with social media and all the noise that's out there? And it's about being disciplined. Being disciplined is so important, and going to the gym, and how do you find your passion? What is a deathbed mentality, and what does that even mean? And so we just kind of dive into just things that you need to look after your mental state. This is a very difficult time for a lot of people. And Harry James is incredible what he does just from a business standpoint. He's incredible what he does from a mindset standpoint, and just what he does, I think, altogether in life. And and I was actually reading his bio, and there's a part in here that I really liked where he says, at a very early age, I was told not to take it all too seriously. Smell the roses, laugh, love, and always put things in perspective. I encourage you to adopt that same philosophy. Go for it. And just one more thing, attitude is still everything. And it is, it's attitude, right? It's how you look at life when you wake up every day, and just being grateful for the things that you're still able to do, right? So listen, phenomenal podcast. I always enjoyed doing this with him, and we're definitely going to do more together. And if you're enjoying the show, don't forget, leave a little review. It doesn't have to be too long, just to let people know that you're enjoying it. We're still kind of on our little break here, but we're still available. Like, if you do need help, if you're having challenges with anything when it comes to your real estate investment portfolio, or even if it's just your home and you're finding yourself in some financial difficulty, reach out. Like, I've got a whole team of experts around me that are way smarter than I am, and they can definitely help guide you down the right path to make the right decision so that you can get yourself out of whatever difficulty that you may be in. All right. And I'm starting to ramble and trip over my words. So that usually means it's time for me to sign off. All right. So listen, enjoy today's show, and I will talk to you guys next week. Take care. Today's show is brought to you by McMurter and Associates. McMurter and Associates is a real estate and estate law firm who can be your legal partner for every major event in your life. If you are planning your estate, selling or buying a home or an investment property, they can definitely help. With over 30 years of experience, the firm's objective is to prevent you from worrying about the legal aspects of your transaction. From the beginning, McMurter and Associates will provide you with straightforward legal advice and a no surprises policy where you won't be hit with a legal bill you did not expect. Mr. Harry James, how are you doing today?
I'm fabulous, Gary. Thank you so much for having me again.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. There's been a lot of interesting things happening in the world today, and I've been keeping an eye on what you've been doing. I love your Instagram page. It's really developed into something I think very interesting, and great tips, great strategies. And I remember you said when you first started, I think it was your daughter that just helped you kind of put it together, right?
My daughter, Shauna, she said, "Hey, Dad, can you start doing little clips on your philosophy? I'd like, my kids to know who you are, what you're all about, stuff."
Yep.
And I kind of started it for her, and that's how I connected with Sarah Larby. She saw one of my videos, asked me to go on her podcast, and then asked me to speak. So, yeah, it's kind of evolved from there. What's really nice is that
Let me get you a little closer to that mic there as well, too.
sure.
Beauty.
What's really nice is I got a note from somebody the other day from one of my videos, and they said, "You have no idea how much I needed that. Thank you so much. It made all the difference in my day." And I think that's the best paycheck I get. I love that feeling that maybe my failures or my stresses or my experiences benefit somebody else.
For sure. What's really important, and I think people miss this piece, is the mindset. It's not just the technical aspect of it, but it's the mindset that's going to get you through the difficult times. And that's what we're going through right now. I talked about this before, that what was missing from 2020 to the beginning of 2022 was no fear. It was almost like all the fear had left the marketplace and people were just making any kind of decisions. There were all of a sudden these real estate gurus popping up, all these investment classes, like just everything. Like this is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on everything that's kind of happened over the last few years?
An analogy I would give on that, Gary, is, I've said this before, and it might annoy some people, but I just think we've gotten soft. If you're playing a game and you're a top tier team and you're playing teams at a lower level, it's a cakewalk. You don't have to be in shape. You don't have to hit the gym every day. You don't have to have a great attitude. You can basically get by with natural ability because you're playing teams that just are not at your level. Well, then what happens is some tough teams come along, some tough times come along, some real life stuff, and you've gotten soft. You've lost you haven't worked on your mindset. You've strayed away from the fundamentals, which is mental fitness, physical fitness, values, passion, your reason for getting up in the morning, a connection, an emotional connection to what it is you're trying to accomplish in life. And you've been kind of riding a wave. And then all of a sudden things change dramatically and you have to deal with problems. And what are people doing? They're not leaning into the problems. They're not figuring out a way to how to get over or under or around the problem. They're running from the problem. And you know what? The way is the problem. You have to lean into it. You have to get creative. And that's how you grow. From adversity comes significant growth. And what I find is people want to play the game, but they don't want to get hurt. Well, guess what? If you're going to play the game at a high level, you're going to lose a tooth, you're going to break an arm, you're going to get some bruises. You're not going to win every time you go out. And I think we've lost that mental toughness because, let's be candid, especially in the real estate space, all you had to do in the last 15 years to do well is have a pulse.
Yeah. So then you touched on the word, which I think is important, is passion. And do you think that people got into it not understanding what their passion was, or what, maybe even more importantly, what their why was? They just saw everybody was doing it. Maybe it was a fear of missing out. Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the most difficult things we do in life, Gary, because of this live your passion and your why, it's almost become a pamphlet or a commercial these days. And I think sometimes people get turned off by it. I think really what it boils down for me is I live with a deathbed mentality. Life is fragile and finite. The only thing people are going to remember about Harry James is how I made them feel. And all the stuff outside of business is 10 times more important than the game. That's the way that I kind of live my life. So I think what's happened is, people have forgotten how to look in the mirror and ask themselves what they want out of life. You should be the architect of your life and you want to live in it, which means you have to be the author of your definition of success. Well, what's required to be the author of your definition of success? You need to know what you want in life and why, and there needs to be emotional connection to it. It could be time with your children, giving back to the community, helping people, creating something that's going to outlive you, just becoming incredibly good at something so you can serve at a very elite level. Whatever it is, but I think people are missing that conduit between getting up in the morning and a real reason, a real emotional connection to what they're doing and why. And I think that's why so many people are depressed or on drugs for mental health and addictions, and that's because they're often, unfortunately, existing and not truly living. And looking around, and there's so much pain in the world, and there's so much conflict in the world. And if you don't have an inner philosophy, a strength, something to lean on to get you through tough times, I think you implode. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of people is we're walking around with very fragile masks, pretending everything's okay. But so many of us are hurting inside, and we just don't have the intestinal fortitude and the substance to fight through because we're missing that emotional connection to what it's all about.
Yeah. I want to dig a little deeper into that. There's something that you said, though, that reminded me of this really amazing quote. And I remember this quote when I was working at TD Bank, and one of our senior managers had this on his signature line. I'm gonna say it. Said, "Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, 'Wow, what a ride.'" That one stuck with me.
Yeah, that's right up there with you don't want to be buried with an epitaph that says, "Here lies Harry James, all of his potential fully intact." We don't take enough risks. We don't go for it. And I'm a student and always have been. I'm kind of an armchair psychologist. I have studied older people for the longest time, and I don't mind taking their advice. And I have heard over and over and over again from people in their 80s and 90s and beyond, the most important thing in their life for health, happiness, and peace is meaningful relationships. Their number one regret are the things that they didn't do, not the things they did do. And if you internalize that, it gives you a frame of reference for living your life. And what people have often noticed about me, and they say, "How do you do all this? How do you take all these risks?" It's because I just don't take it that seriously. It's a game. I mean, if you lose money, you can make it back up. Solvable problems are not a problem. It's the reason we exist. If you have problems that are solvable, you should be thanking God for them, because you can use your talents and your abilities and your relationships to solve those problems. As entrepreneurs, we generally get paid for solving problems. The only thing that qualifies for a problem for Harry James is if somebody I love is in the back of an ambulance. I mean, any solvable problem doesn't bother me. So in the context of my business life, ups and downs like everybody else. Kicked in the head, feeling confident one minute and feeling like a loser the next. That's just part of the game. And I think with that philosophy, it helps you put things in perspective and truly live life more fully.
Right. Do you think people don't play to win? They play not to lose? Do you think that's part of it?
100%.
Where they play more of that defense?
100%. I mean, I just talking to somebody recently, and I want to be careful because I don't want, it's not as if anybody would know them, but they're making a decision on leasing some space from us. And it's a young couple that are doing a kind of fitness studio. And this guy is coming up with every potential problem that could happen on the planet between now and the time he retires. And I'm saying to him, look, you've got to look at the downside. There's not a big downside. This is a 3-year lease. It's a great rate. You're in a great neighborhood. There's a great built-in clientele. Any problems that come up, you'll be able to solve. But if you're looking to have every single green light up the street before you push the gas pedal, it's never going to happen. A lot of people, Gary, they want to make decisions with no downside. They don't want to take any risk whatsoever. Not with their investments, not with going into business, not with relationships. You can't live that way because you miss out. Just because somebody lets you down doesn't mean the next person's going to let you down. Just because that relationship didn't work out doesn't mean the next relationship isn't going to work out. Like, you can't just cling on and say, okay, unless I know for sure everything's going to be okay, I'm going to do nothing, because that's not living. That is basically just existing. Right.
So then somebody's listening to this right now and they're hearing your words and they're like, okay, Harry, look, I get it. I got to get the mindset right. I got to figure out maybe what my passion is. But right now I got into the game. I got in 2019, 2020. I've got a few properties under my belt now. I probably didn't pick the right ones. Negative cash flow. I'm stuck in a variable. What do you say to somebody that's in that situation?
Welcome to being an entrepreneur. Welcome to the real game. Welcome to real life. Good for you for not sitting in the stands and criticizing. Good for you for getting on the playing field. That's all part of it. What I would say is don't panic. Step back. Think about where you've been, where you are, and where you want to go. And then come up with, lean into the problem and come up with creative solutions. What I've done in the past when I've found myself in that situation is I have brought in partners. Instead of selling, liquidity means loss. And by the way, I'm going to say to most of your listeners, or probably all of your listeners, I highly doubt you made a mistake. You made the best decision you could at the time with the facts that were on the table at the time. You made the best decision with respect to the variable rate. Don't beat yourself up. Okay, learn. That's where wisdom comes from. That's going to benefit you in the future. But dwelling on the fact and saying, well, woulda, shoulda, coulda done this, or woulda, shoulda, coulda done that, that just aggravates, it rubs salt in a wound. It doesn't serve you in any way, shape, or form. So if I have, for example, a property, let's say I bought a duplex and I'm negative cash flow $1,500 a month, and I only have one. I'm a conservative guy, so I've like low interest rates were like gold to me. So I locked everything up 5 years. But I did do one variable on a deal that we had to because of the way the deal was structured, and the mortgage renewed and it went up $5,000 a month. I understand that pain. Like I get it. And it's not fun. But when you are dealing with a situation like that, you can go to somebody, and many people want to get involved in real estate, but they don't have the time or the inclination or the know-how or the drive to do it. And you can say, look, I've got this great property. It's got good solid equity in it. I think it's going to be a great long-term investment. All real estate is long-term.
Yep. Okay.
People build their wealth over, 10 years, not 10 minutes. I would argue over 20 or 30 years. So I fully expected my net worth to go down a few years ago, and sure enough, it has. That's just part of the game. Again, it's just the reality of the ups and downs of the market. But if this person has a negative cash flow, you approach somebody that has good income and the ability to handle some of that negative cash flow, and then say, listen, I'll give you half the deal if you take the negative cash flow, or take half the negative cash flow. And half the deal, by the way, I put $100,000 down, so arguably that's $50,000. I'll manage it. I'll take care of it. We'll go to the lawyer. We'll paper it properly. And over the long term, even if it doesn't go up, other people, OPM, are going to pay that money off through something called, pay that mortgage off through something called rents. And then the magic of real estate will once again show its brilliance, as it has since the beginning of time. Like this time it's different is a silly it's not. Everything's cyclical. I remember I was a young trust officer, Canada Trust, and I was there for Black Monday back in the 80s. And the market lost I don't know how many trillions overnight. And a gentleman upstairs shot himself. Very, very sad time. And everybody I remember at the time was saying, this time it's going to be different. This time the market's not going to come back. This time the world is going to end. Do you want to know something, Gary? If you'd left on a 2-year vacation and came back, you wouldn't have even know what happened. As a matter of fact, your investments would have been up.
Right.
24 months. As a matter of fact, 2 days in the market within 6 months recovered about 60% of the losses. This time it's not different. Real estate's a great asset. If you're in a tough situation right now, negative cash flow, property underwater, I've been in the market where the mortgages have been higher than the value of the properties. Happens. I've been in a market where it was a sideways market for 10 years. I believe this market we're in right now is one of the best markets to buy, to negotiate, to start to build a portfolio, or to bring in partners. Why? Because everybody's on the sidelines and I'm not in a competitive situation, and I can actually negotiate, and I can become creative, and I can do vendor takebacks. I mean, it's an exciting time to be an entrepreneur in the real estate business right now. Unfortunately, though, many people are soaking in negativity.
Yes.
Soaking in regret, soaking in looking in the rearview mirror instead of the windshield. And it's a very, very, very unhealthy place to be. And that's where I want to shift a little bit, Gary, to mindset, because you've talked about mindset a couple of times. Thoughts are real things, like seeds.
Yes.
If I plant a rose seed, I'm going to get a rose. if I plant a weed seed, I'm going to get a weed. Most people are planting weed seeds every single day. Yeah, maybe they're working out, maybe they're eating right, but they're walking around and their brain, their mind, their subconscious accepts everything like the city sewer and rejects nothing. And if there's one thing I'm going to say on this podcast today that I think is valuable, protect your mindset. You know, we spend millions of dollars on filters for computers to make sure that we don't get infected, but we don't spend 50 cents on protecting our mindset and our brains.
So true. You know, one of the things that I do in the morning is I go to yoga 3 times a week. The other 2 mornings I get up, and what I've had to do recently, and especially what's recently happened with the war in Israel and Palestine, is getting up now and actually going for a walk. Because soon as if you turn on that social media, you turn that phone on, it's boom, in your face on almost every platform. And when I go for my walk, I'm listening to motivational YouTube videos in my ears for 45 minutes to an hour with Eric Thompson or Jim Rohn or Denzel Washington or whoever, because the fear is it's stronger today. It's the strongest I think I've ever felt it. And so what you're saying is you got to protect your mind. Like, you truly do have to.
Well, look, I mean, if you combine COVID with 10 interest rate hikes, with all the controversy, and I don't want to be political at all, I'm not interested, but all the controversy about the vaccines and all of that, and then you go to 10 interest rate hikes, then you go war, then you go instability, then you go conflict.
Yep.
I mean, if you are a regular consumer of news, if you're not on drugs, I'm impressed. Because I just don't know how you could have peace and be able to perform at an optimum level if that's what you're ingesting. And like you, I was up very early this morning while I did my cardio for an hour. I listened to As a Man Thinketh, and then I do my weights. And I do all of that, including breakfast and coffee and meditation and gratitude, before I pick up my phone. And I'm not perfect. I try to do it every single day. With moving over the last couple of weeks, it's been a little unusual, but it's become an ingrained habit. And what I find is, and this is so powerful because, again, and I challenge anybody to look this up, thoughts are real. Energy is real. When you feed your mind that, what you're doing is you're crowding out the negativity. And the more you feed positivity, the more that you're crowding out negativity. And what happens is you subconsciously are starting to meditate on the things that you want to manifest and starting to meditate on the things that bring you joy and bring you peace and also allow you to grow. I've said this a number of times, anytime I've had the privilege of speaking. If you don't have belief in yourself, if you don't love yourself unconditionally and forgive yourself, and you're pursuing quality relationships, you'll subliminally repel them. You'll subliminally sabotage them. If you don't believe that you're worthy of a certain level of success, you will subliminally sabotage any opportunity that comes your way. You see, that's how we were built as human beings. We're incredibly intricate. And when you feed your mind, when you weed your mind, that what you're doing is you're incrementally every single day reprogramming the baked-in cake that has been there for as long as you've been on the planet. You're a third of your mom and dad, and then the rest is the people you've met, the books you've read, the schools you've attended, and the news. Unfortunately, you're ingesting every single day. So to change that negative mindset, to change that paradigm, requires hard work every day on the mindset.
I can't agree with you more. Now, in regards to your businesses and real estate investing, have you had to shift? Have you had to reposition? Have you had to, has that what's happened, put some holes into your businesses at all? And what have you done? No,
I'm Teflon. I'm completely, immune to anything that goes on in the world, including 10 interest rate hikes. Yeah, we're getting killed. So, listen, I sold, I don't mean to say I in an arrogant way, but my team and I sold $10 million worth of triplexes in Coburg. We've been developing in Coburg for the better part of 20-something years. 3 years ago, I sold them out in a day. You would think, well, that's great. We sold them at a great value, two-bedroom apartments and 800 square foot commercial on the bottom. If somebody drives to Coburg over the next little while, they'll see the machines finally moving. But so we sold them 3 years ago. The price of materials went through the roof. Interest went crazy. And the town of Coburg, they all went to sleep and they changed their senior staff. Uh-huh. We just got our permits 2 weeks ago. I should have delivered those triplexes a year ago. The interest payments on carrying this project alone were $150,000 per quarter. So yes, we have had to navigate and, deal with problems in the reality in which we find ourselves.
Are you talking about is this right across from our building in Coburg? Right there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you've had that for a while.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding? The sign's faded.
Yeah.
Those should have been delivered a long time ago. But again, I did everything I possibly could. Now, here's what I'm really proud of. What we didn't do, which a lot of builders did, and we're just tiny little guys that pretend that we know what we're doing. But I didn't go back to our buyers and ask them for more money. I didn't go back and cancel their deals. We're honoring those deals. And my partner, Joe Ferrara, and I'll be shocked if we make any money. I think we'll be lucky to just get out, deliver the project, and move on. And how I made that into a positive, Gary, is pivoted. Found other projects. We're building, we found a nice little piece actually through Sarah Larby in Lakefield where we're building 10 duplexes. We built our little Inspire Beach Resort, which is doing quite well. And then what I did is looked at our whole organization and said, hey, we've gotten lazy. I see contractors charging me double what they should be. I'm seeing waste of materials. I'm seeing insurance rates that are ridiculous because we haven't shopped. So what we've done is we've gone through our whole business model and said, look, this is a different time. We've got to be more prudent and more wise with our resources. So we've gone through every property, every insurance, all the team, and everybody stepped up. But when you're going through a time like this, you're in the playoffs with two guys in the penalty box, and you just got to fight through.
Let's touch on this, because I think what you just talked about is really important as well too. Because so people hear 10 million or 5 million, they're hearing millions. And I remember when I first got into this game, and I would hear those kind of big numbers. Yeah, and I'm like, man, if I could just make $5,000 a month, I'm good. Yeah. But then as you grow, you start to add team members or staff or buildings. And now you don't need 5,000. Now you need 50,000 a month or 40,000, whatever the number is. How challenging is that? Like how closely are you looking at your businesses and your expenses and your revenues and the moving pieces? Because that's got to be a lot, Harry.
It is a lot. And as I said, I'm probably, I got to say, in our business over the last 3-4 years, I've navigated a significant number of projects that have probably no 2 days in my business life have been the same, because you have to constantly keep your finger on the pulse of it. Now, thankfully, because we've been doing this for 40 years, we're not bungee jumpers. We have a very healthy portfolio and good equity. And I always say this to people I have the chance to talk to. When I'm having a cash flow issue, my psychological soother is my net worth. So I can focus on that and say, okay, well, if things get really, really bad, I can do this, this, and this. So it becomes a comfort blanket, I guess, when you're going through tough cash flow situations. But yeah, it is very, very daunting. But at the same time, because of my philosophy and my perspective, there's a couple of things that your listeners want to be aware of. First of all, I get a little annoyed when people throw around big numbers. Uh-huh. I manage $100 million of real estate. Yeah, and what does that mean? Like maybe it's 99% mortgaged. Like that doesn't, like $100 million of real estate doesn't mean anything. Like all it really means is, you've got a lot of obligations. Or people say, I've got so many doors. It's a silly, like, who cares how many doors you have? Like,
Right.
do you have a healthy business? Is it good cash flow? Is there good net worth? Is there ability to pivot and to mine other opportunities within your portfolio? So I think when I bought the town hall back in 1993 on Main Street, Markham, that building scared me to death. It was listed for $899. I paid $500,000. I put in a lowball offer. It was power of sale. A market not unlike a little bit, I think, what we're going to be going into over the next 12 to 18 months. And somehow I got it. Even when I put the offer in to buy it, I didn't have the down payment. The building just scared me to death. It needed a lot of work. The units on the roof were literally running with duct tape, the heat and air conditioning units. But once I did that deal, I almost walked away from it, but it stretched me. And once I got in there and got it rented and started chip away at it, now today that wouldn't be such a big deal. But at the time, it was a big deal. In other words, everybody starts somewhere. Uh-huh. And as so my managing what I'm managing now with our portfolio and our projects is not a lot different than somebody that's just started with their first duplex or triplex. It's different numbers, but it's the same challenges, the same growth opportunity. And the same day-to-day concerns, whether it be things breaking down or things going well or a tenant giving notice. That's no different than one of our buyers backing out. So it's relative, but really it doesn't matter what stage of the game you're at. We're all dealing with the same challenges. And I would say the only thing that separates Harry James and somebody starting out is a little bit of time and a couple of deals.
Right. And, you've just made a lot more mistakes as well, too, over the years that you can...
Black belt,
You're
brother. I got my black belt mistakes.
Yeah. Listen, man, I'm getting there. I'm getting close to you, man.
No, you're not. But you're right. You're not beating me.
No, I don't know if I will, but man, it's, I look back at even my life, and the best lessons that I've received are from some of the biggest mistakes. It's not that I ever want to. You never want mistakes, but I look back and I'm like, man, thank goodness I went through that. At the time when you're going through it, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable, but I've learned the most from it, and, you even go back, and I try and tell people this as well too. Go back to when you were 16 or 17 and you think about the problems then and you look back at them now, they were not big problems, but yet, you know what? You were praying to God. Like, God, if you get me out of this issue with this girl or this guy, I promise I'll go to church. And that's what it is. But you learn from that and you grow and it's, where you are in life, it's no different.
I completely agree with you. And the other thing is too, I don't know if this makes sense, like, we're just a tiny little company. So I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that we're some shooters, because we're not. But the one thing to keep in mind too is that, when you're doing a deal, a lot of people's measuring stick for success is finance. Believe it or not, that's not mine. Okay. Like, the financial win, it's important. You can't do deal after deal after deal where you lose money. But I'm going to give you a great example of a deal that I think is a really good deal, but not particularly a great financial win. And I'll take you to our project up in Lakefield, Red Brick Lofts. And if anybody's interested, they can look at it online at harryjamesenterprises.com. Beautiful building. We bought that building. I had my eye on that building for the longest time because my cottage is close by. But Gary, I'll push the fast forward button to not bore everybody. It took us 5 years to renovate it. It took us a year to gut it. And then we got in the middle of COVID. And then they wouldn't let us open it up because we couldn't get our generator delivered on time because of COVID. So I had to spend $1,500 a week for somebody to sit there in the parking lot. Couldn't get it rented because of masks and COVID and this and that. And then because the Bank of Montreal took so long to give me my conventional financing after we raised private finance to build it, my monthly payments on the building were up $5,000 a month over above what I'd budgeted. So, and even to this moment, I just was there this morning. We've been dealing with a water problem that's been lingering since we opened that building that we're solved, but it's been very expensive. It's like the man with the most wells wins. I've just drilled my 4th well. But anyways, we're close to solving the problem, but that added another $200,000 to already a $4.5 million budget. Now, all that to say, we have lots of equity in the property, but it's not cash flowing. But when I go to that property, I am incredibly satisfied with what we've contributed to the landscape. I'm incredibly proud of the beautiful places that we've created for people to live with their own private gardens and 25 acres to walk their dogs, a guest suite when their parents come over if they don't want them in the same room. And so I'm really proud of this piece of art that we've delivered to the landscape. So that makes me feel that I've contributed something, even though financially it hasn't quite worked out the way I want it to, if that makes any sense. So I don't have a one-dimensional definition of success, and that is, well, finances, we hit it out of the park. It's not always the way it works for me.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Is there anything that keeps you up at night, Harry? Is there ever a time where you're just like, man?
From a business standpoint, I'm going to say usually, I think I drive a lot of people nuts. I live my life at 10,000 feet, which is health, vitality, family, relationships, recognizing that life is fragile and finite, and recognizing that all business is just a game and we shouldn't take it that seriously. I don't even look at, when I go on any of our properties, including this morning, I don't even think to myself, I own this. I temporarily manage it. Ownership's an illusion. So I don't get too caught up in that. The only thing that would keep me up at night from a business standpoint is the thought of letting anybody down.
Right.
I'm good at handling adversity for whatever reason. And maybe it's because I've been handling it for the better part of 60 years now. But anyways, I'm pretty good at handling adversity. I'm pretty good at quickly putting things in perspective. But I also recognize that many people aren't. And there's a handful of people that will come along on projects with us and want to be involved. And I'm always happy to have them involved. And we bring them in as shoulder-to-shoulder partners. We don't mark things up and charge fees and all that nonsense. But and if any of those people, and thankfully, believe it or not, the whole time our reputation is impeccable, and we've always delivered to our investors. But if I ever let anybody down and it hurt them in any way, that would be one thing that would keep me up at night. But to this point, thankfully, that's not been the case.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that would keep me up at night as well, too, is just I always want to make sure that I'm true to my word, that I'm protecting people, and I'm doing the best of my ability to not leave anybody behind.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what I find difficult now, to be candid, Gary, is I just find, and again, I possibly will offend somebody here, and I apologize. There are too many people out there, though, taking people's money, and they really don't know what they're doing. Getting people involved in real estate, and they really have not got the experience or the background or education or skill set, frankly, to be taking people along for the ride. It would be like being a tour guide in Africa and you've only gone down the trail once. I don't want that person protecting me from the lions and tigers and bears. I mean, there's just too many things. And I think it's there's a lot of great things with social media, but somebody with 15 minutes experience is hosting a master class. Everybody's a coach. Nobody's a player. I want to be a player. I don't know what happened to all the players, but this is a great time to play. And it seems to me a lot of the people are getting into coaching they're getting into coaching because they couldn't handle a playing field. Well, that's not a good reason to become a coach.
Right.
You should be becoming a coach because you've had a great track record. You've done some great things, and you want to mentor and help other people accomplish what you've accomplished. That to me is a great coach or mentor. To be coaching because it didn't work out. I'm not sure I understand. And, and I encourage anybody that's listening, my goodness, if you have a coach or you have a mentor, interview them.
Right. Yeah.
What have you done?
How long have they been doing it for?
How long have you been doing it? Show me your projects. What's your net worth? How do you live your lifestyle? It's okay. If somebody's going to charge you for their advice or their tutoring or their mentoring, you're allowed to go in their underwear drawer and find out why they should be having an impact on your life.
Exactly. Underwear drawer, sock drawer. Yeah, check it all out.
Absolutely.
I agree 100%. How long you been in the game for? Yeah, let's do a little tour of where some of your properties are.
Absolutely. And let me talk to some of your clients. Let me talk to some people that you've given advice to in the past to see how they're doing. I mean, you've got to do your due diligence. Look, you're accountable and responsible for your life, your finances, your situation. You can't blame circumstances and other people. You've got to take the bull by the horn or grab the steering wheel firmly.
Exactly. And it always ends up, it's the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror, the person that you're looking at. It's always, people always want to blame other people for where they are or their circumstances or their situation, but it always does come back to you. Every way I've tried to look at it or try to, when I was younger to blame other people, it's not. It's always me.
No, and I totally agree with you. And I think too often we throw other people under the bus. Everybody has a lens they look through. And if people have good values and morals and ethics, you may not agree on the way that you've solved the problem, but their lens is saying, hey, I'm right, and your lens is saying you're right. That's why I always say to people that, there's no awards in life for being right. Hanging on to being right only creates conflict. Bitterness, anger, jealousy that you carry around only eats away at the container in which it resides. So let stuff go. People make mistakes. People have let me down. I've lost money with people. People have, made assumptions that were inaccurate, but I can't be responsible, nor is it any of my business as to how they feel about me. I've got to let stuff go. It's a very liberating place to be and an unencumbered place to be when you just, if your guiding light is to do the right thing and treat people with respect and be the best version of yourself, then you know what? You can play with a bounce in your step and go for it each and every time.
Yeah. So Harry, you're a leader. Do you think you were born that way? Do you think you learned to become a leader? Is it something that you set out to do?
Gary, great question. I know from a very, very young age, I wanted to be self-employed. I knew that. Uh-huh. I put a black dial telephone in my parents' it's called a box room. It didn't have a window, and I pretended I was a photographer, and I set up a photography business. I didn't have a camera. My buddy did. So I always knew that I wanted to be self-employed. But that said, when I went into the life insurance business in 1984,
yep.
Is it 1984 or 1986? I should know this because my 40th wedding anniversary is coming up, and it was the same time. I had the privilege of sitting live under Zig Ziglar, Dennis Waitley, John Maxwell, incredible leaders. This was the time where, if you were a musician and you were on the top 10 in Chum, you were getting everybody's attention.
So you got to sit in live? What do you mean?
I saw Zig Ziglar at St. Lawrence.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So I got to sit under these amazing speakers and attend their workshops. And I became a real student of human performance. Like the performance industry, personal performance industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And there's a lot of great leaders and a lot of great products available in there. But at the very, very, very front end, there was less. So the competition was higher and the quality was through the roof. Uh-huh. So there wasn't any people with 10 minutes experience on stage where I was going. These people had done it, had a track record, and were passionate and articulate. Brian Tracy was another one that I saw a lot.
I wonder if that's the one I've listened to. It was like a weekend workshop. And I think it was hosted by Chris Waitley. Mm-hmm. Was that it?
Dennis Waitley.
Or Dennis Waitley. Yeah. Man, that was a powerful. I didn't go live, but I listened to it. It's one of my favorite ones.
Incredible speaker. And also there's a gentleman that sold, you would know his name. In the U.S., he sold a house every day for 365 days. I went to his workshop. Okay. He's a really dynamic man. He's actually still rocking and rolling. But So I got the opportunity to not just ingest, but digest this information. Mm-hmm. And I would drive around. I put 80,000 kilometers a year on my car and drink 8 coffees a day. And Wayne Dyer I'd listen to, and tapes after tapes after tapes, and books after books after books. And I think what happened incrementally over 40 years is I did what I just said a few moments ago to your listeners. I incrementally changed my paradigm. I changed my mindset. Now it's automatic.
Right.
It's a reflex. So I'm wired this way because I've done the work for the last 40 years getting this way. And that's what I find interesting when people say, well, I haven't made my goals. And well, how much work have you done? Well, I wrote it down. Excellent. Yeah. You have to change your mindset. Mm. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have conviction. You have to be emotionally attached. You have to use the power of the subconscious. You see, what I find fascinating, Gary, is all the information to live the life that you want, to live your definition of success, to live your dream is right there. But you know what, Gary? It's really, really easy, but it's hard to execute on. Mm-hmm. It's easy to do, but hard to execute on. So what do people do? They go from flower to flower. This one didn't work. This one didn't work. This one didn't work. No. It has nothing to do with the material. There's probably 20 or 30 or 40 different mentors or coaches that could get you to where you want to go. No, the difference is you have to do the work.
Right.
You have to execute. I've got a buddy that's trying to lose weight. And he goes to the gym. I said, fantastic. Goes to the gym regularly. Awesome. I said, what do you do for the 14 hours when you're not in the gym? Because if it's drive-through McDonald's and ice cream cones and a few beers, and that's your prerogative. I'm not judging, but it's going to undermine what it is you're trying to achieve. See, what matters the most is what you do after you read the book, after you go to the workshop, after you have time with your mentor or coach. The moment you leave your office, that is when the rubber hits the road.
Right.
What are you doing?
Because listen, if knowledge was power, then those librarians would all be successful multimillionaires.
How about, hey,
they've got it all right there at their fingertips.
Gary, excellent point. Let's go to the degrees. I just heard a stat that I found unbelievable. 70% of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. Less than 1% of Canadians have a net worth of $7 million. So we have information like you wouldn't believe. It's information is in education and PhDs, but we're not happy. Right. We're not living our definition of success. We're reacting to situations, and frankly, many of us, I suspect, are walking around with our potential fully intact.
Right. We are almost AI now. It's just not attached to us, but it's right here. You have access to almost anything that you want. For whatever reason, though, we keep going on that negative path. You pull in that information that doesn't do you any good. That's probably why that stat's so true. 67% of Canadians are paycheck to paycheck.
Well, because I think, and I was talking to somebody about this just this morning. There's a price to be paid to change your life. It's uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable.
Bob Proctor calls it the fear terror barrier, where you have to lean through and break through all of the things that scare you to death to get to the other side. And most people bounce off that terror barrier and play it safe because it's easier to live without the change you want in your life than to pay the price for the change that you desire. So most people, I would say, are knowledgeably and comfortably unhappy, but they're not prepared to pay, or I wouldn't say unhappy, discontent, but they're not prepared to pay the price to pursue the things that are going to make them more fulfilled. So they go the easy route. And a great analogy for that is, let's say, Gary, you want to get in great shape and you want to do a triathlon, let's say. Now, you're with your buddies. It's a hot summer day. It's gorgeous outside. You just golfed, and they're all going for beer and wings in the most gorgeous patio you've ever seen. And your choice is, do I do that or go to a freezing cold swimming pool and swim 40 lengths? Now, most people are like, I'll do the lengths later.
Yeah.
Kind of go with my buddies. As human beings, we seek comfort. Discomfort is not something we naturally seek, but discomfort's a prerequisite for growth. Discomfort's a prerequisite to achieve goals. Discomfort is something that you have to get comfortable with. Yeah. Otherwise, you're stagnant.
One of the things that I remember the most of Brian Tracy, he says some incredible things, is eat that frog.
Yeah.
And it's just saying, do the hard things first. Yeah. Get that out of the way so at least you've accomplished something for the day.
Yeah.
And that has always stuck with me. Like, I get up in the morning, I don't like going to yoga. I get up, I'm like, but when I'm done, man, I'm so happy I did it.
Absolutely.
Because I've pushed myself. I've done things where it's made me uncomfortable. I'm not thinking about my businesses. I'm thinking about, how am I going to twist my goddamn body into this move?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm more in tune with my mind, my body, and sweating and breathing and feeling alive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. So one of my goals, you evolve and change. Now that I'm in that's 60 to 90, I call it chapter free. I'm 62 years old now, and I'm in the fall of my life. And one of my goals and one of my passions, I've always tried to stay in decent shape, is to age well. And And so part of, there's a book called Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia, which I just finished reading. It's outstanding. And physiologically, there's a couple things that I'm trying to work into my workout now so that I can have 60 to 90 be health span, not just lifespan. So you can function and pick up your grandchildren and hike and all the things that you want to enjoy while you're on the planet. So like you, I wake up this morning, and one of the things that I'm doing is there's a 60-minute cardio per week, and then a 30-minute high intensity where you go 4 minutes all out, 2 minutes off, and so on. And it's exactly like you. It is. You know what going to the gym is? It's a pill. It's a prescription, and it's the drug that I prefer to take as opposed to the ones that are the alternative. I don't want to be in the hospital. I don't want to be in the emergency room. I don't want to be on the gurney. So I'm trying to stack the odds in my favor. So every time I go into my gym, I'm making a deposit in my future that I can withdraw from a health point of view. VO2 max, muscle mass, and bone density, and all the things required to age well. So when you go into the gym thinking, okay, I'm making a deposit for future lifestyle and future health span, then it maybe helps you overcome the price that you're paying to be there, as well as the alternative being being on cholesterol pills or drugs or needing some type of surgery.
Yeah. The
other thing I wanted to add, because we're talking about all these speakers, Zig Ziglar, and I think it's interesting when you look at the personal development space, because nothing I'm saying today is even remotely original. This is all stuff that I've read, picked up through osmosis, heard about, tried, and I've developed this little Harry James philosophy that works for me. But the reality is, again, the information is so simple. It gets repackaged differently by Tony Robbins and by this guy and by that guy. And that's okay, because everybody communicates and relates differently to different human beings. That's great. That's what makes a capitalist system, and that's what creates great opportunities for people. But what I listened to this morning, As a Man Thinketh, written in 1906 or 1908, if you listen to that, it is the foundation of every single personal development person on the planet. And there's not one personal development person. This is something, again, I think that's really valuable to remember. The one thing they all agree upon, every one of them, is you become what you think about.
Yeah.
They don't agree on everything, but that's the one thing they agree upon. Where does that go back to again? Mindset, paradigm. How do you do that? Daily work, just like working out and eating well. Yep. Again, it's simple. And the reality is it's available for everybody, regardless of your background, your education, whether you have a degree or not, whether you've ever had money or not, whether you've ever made a lot of money. It's available for everybody. And that's what's so exciting about the way that we're built as human beings and what human beings are capable of when they unleash themselves and believe in themselves.
Yeah. So what you put into your mind, right? Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
And I remember when I picked that book up, can it be that simple? I just think about it. Yeah. And then, I got to do some action as well too.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about the gym, and I think this is important as well too, if people can take this piece away, you go to the gym to get to the point to make your muscles fail.
Yeah.
So that the next time you go to the gym, you were only able to do 10 push-ups. Well, guess what now? 2 days later, you can now maybe do 12.
Yeah.
And if you can take that philosophy and mindset away from that and apply it to life, doing things to get to the point to fail, so that you now have grown, you've made your sphere even that bigger, that larger. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
You're growing, right?
Absolutely.
You're expanding.
Absolutely. I think the other thing too about the gym, and I know that you would agree with this, is when you make your health and vitality a priority, you're stacking the odds in your favor for optimum performance. Why? Well, you sleep better. Sleep is probably more important than exercise in some ways. You think clearer. You have more confidence. You have a higher self-esteem. You're a better father. You're a better wife. You're a better husband. You're a better leader. The benefits are incredible. It's just that, again, I was talking to my daughter the other day, and this is a very old parenting thing, but if you're not an alcoholic, but you hang out with 5, you'll be the 6th. If you're not a drug addict and you hang out with 5, you'll be the 6th. Well, you can turn that into a positive too. If you aren't wealthy and you hang out with 5 wealthy people, you'll probably be the 6th. If you aren't fit, you hang out with 5 fit people, you'll probably be the 6th. there's an energy and an osmosis almost that is contagious with the company that you keep. But you're going to find a common denominator for most well-rounded, successful people: gratitude, generosity, and making their health and vitality are pretty important.
Yeah, it reminds me of what Jim Rohn said, right? Hey, look, you want to be healthy, study health. You want to be wealthy, study wealth.
Yeah.
You want to, hey, whatever it is that you want to, just become a good student of it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of people that are looking at macroeconomics. Do you do any of that? Do you look at the big picture? Do you look at like what's happening, 80-year cycle? Do you look at what's happening with Russia? Do you pay attention to those big macroeconomics saying, well, hold on a second, maybe this is different?
You know what? I'd have to be honest and say I don't think so. I mean, do I pay attention to big picture things? Do I want to know if California falls into the ocean? And do I want to know important things that affect humanity? Of course I do. But what I try not to do is to dwell on things that I have no control over.
Good point.
And so I've found in my little world, in my life, if I focus on the things that I can control and I put positive energy into the people that I have the privilege of spending time with, and I can speak positively into my children and grandchildren's lives by leading by example, my responsibility as a father, as a grandfather, as a business person is to make the environment around me as positive and constructive and as healthy and vibrant as I possibly can. Filling my mind with negativity and doomsday and things that are destructive is going to detract or water down that energy. So I'm very, very careful what I read, what I listen to, and I try to make good decisions. I'm not running around with my head in the sand saying, everything's perfect, the world is fine. I'm not doing that, but I am just focusing on what I can control.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of as well too is like when I look back at the properties I've purchased and what I've done over the years, I had less information and focused more on the mindset from 2007 until 2016, 17, and I accumulated more wealth, more properties with less information from a macro reports, data, analysis. And now that I see more of it, because I'm paying attention to some other things now that people are putting out there, and it almost freezes me. I'm like, I have more information, but why am I so scared? Or why am I locked up? I've noticed that. And I think that's what ends up happening is that people get so much data and so much information that they don't know what to do with it. And then they get that analysis paralysis.
Well, I think it creates a traffic jam of epic proportions. I mean, we can go right back to the fundamentals. I think, I live my life by the vital signs philosophy: relationship, spiritual, physical, financial. Those are the 4 buckets or the 4 cornerstones that I try to address daily in my life and make sure I adjust and do my best to be at a high level. Well, there are hundreds of thousands of books on how to be financially successful, millions of books on how to be fit, millions of books on how to build a business, create wealth. Like, there's no lack of information. There's lack of execution. Like, everybody knows how to climb up the bungee tower, put the straps on. It's the jumping people are struggling with. Nobody's jumping.
Right.
And maybe it's because they want to make sure there's no risk or that everything has to line up or, their parents told them they were no good or they don't think they're worthy. Or, I mean, again, playing armchair psychologist here, but there's got to be a reason why we have all this information and no execution. There's got to be a reason why we have so many incredibly educated people, incredible potential, and so few people financially free, so few people in a position to live the life that they want. And we seem to be okay with that. And I think when you break away from that and say, no, I'm not okay with that. I want to be different. I want to live different. I want to author my definition of success. You become a salmon going upstream. Now, to be a salmon going upstream, you really need the intestinal fortitude and the conviction that you're heading in the right direction. And again, that takes us full circle by why mindset becomes so critically important and the company you keep becomes so critically important.
Yeah. We're getting close to the end here, but I got a couple more questions I do want to ask you. What's the best and worst day that you've had?
Business wise or
just life?
Life?
Yeah.
Well, a couple of the worst days, and this one was with me for a while. My good friend had a beautiful little girl, and she choked to death on a hot dog. She was 2 years old. And I remember going to the funeral, and I remember him telling me in graphic detail what had happened. And it affected me for months. I really struggled with that. And, I think probably one of the things that came out of that period of my life is there are no questions to the answer why. You just have to accept and trust there's going to be answers on the other side. But if you run around life with a spreadsheet looking for balance and reconciliation and 1 and 1 having equal 2, I think you end up in a loony bin. So that was a very tough period for myself. Of course, losing my dad, losing my mother-in-law, losing people is tough because it's not a fixable problem. It's just life. It's a circle of life, and you have to develop a faith and a philosophy and a way to deal with that. So I would say that those losing people and going through things that I can't fix is difficult for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is tough. And I think that's why I've probably pushed myself to live the best life that I can, because my mother-in-law passed away in her early 30s. My mom passed away. One of my younger sisters passed away. And I've realized this is not a forever ride. And so why not take chances? Why not have fun? Why not try to impact and share what you've learned along the way with as many people as you can?
Yeah. Yeah. And, Gary, it's real talk. it's real life. I think, my tagline, live real, be real. That's the stuff that matters the most. And again, not to get overly philosophical or airy-fairy, but I've never been to a funeral and seen a net worth statement on top of a coffin. Any eulogy that's moved me is always about relationships and the impact and the sacrifice that person did to help somebody else or to make life a better place. I'll go back to one of the things I said earlier. I just think we take this game of business and real estate way too seriously. Yeah, it's great. It's better to have money than not have money, but money is not going to make you happy. Suzanne Summers just passed away, and I think just before she passed, she said, at the end of the day, it's not what you have or what you've done. It's who you love and who loves you. And I think there's a tremendous amount of wisdom in that statement. And so again, if you could program yourself to stay there and recognize that daily, which I thankfully have done, then stuff doesn't get to me as much. The losses or the tenant or things going good or things going bad, they don't impact you as much. Why? Because you have peace in the chaos. You recognize that life is always going to have things undone, always going to have challenges, always going to have issues. But outside circumstances shouldn't determine your happiness or your peace or your ability to perform. And that's why I believe when you develop a philosophy, in my case, it's the vital science philosophy of knowing what's important and adhering to that and anchoring to that, it puts you in a position where you're not a pop can on the wave of circumstance in life.
Yeah. And stop waiting. Stop waiting for the right time. Stop waiting for the interest rates to change. Stop waiting to be invited at that seat at the table. Stop waiting, because you know what's not waiting? Depression, anxiety, your bills. Stop waiting.
You and I talked just before we went on air, and I said, if not now, when? That's why my wife and I moved. We were always going to move to this small town, and we were down in Bahamas, and we're sitting there, and I said, hey, hon, you know what? Our youngest is going to be 22. We've always talked about it. Let's do it. If not now, when?
Right.
And living with a sense of urgency and recognizing, and everybody that's all 4 people that have heard me speak before have heard this, the only thing worthy of being in a vault is time. You have $1 billion, you're not buying 60 more seconds in the hospital. Time is your most valuable asset. You want to protect it and spend it in a way that gives you peace and joy, and have the intestinal fortitude to make decisions based on what you truly want, not what other people want for you. You have to have the confidence and the conviction to live your definition of success and make decisions that are going to serve you and be in line with your values. You don't want to get down the road saying woulda, shoulda, coulda. You don't want to get down the road and say, why didn't I have the courage of conviction to do that? Why didn't I quit my job and start that little tiny flower business? Why didn't I pack up and move down to Florida like I had always planned to pursue my golf career? Why didn't I? Why did I take life so seriously? And now here I am looking back, and I got all the woulda, shouldas that can fill up Santa's sack. So you don't want that. No matter what's going on, everything is not always perfect. You got to execute. You got to do it now. If not now, when is a theme I would encourage a lot of people to subscribe to.
I agree. Somebody's asked me, say, hey, Gary, your cottage that you have, like, was that a good investment? It wasn't a good investment from a return on investment, but it was the best return on time.
Absolutely.
And that time is incredible when you're sitting down with somebody by the campfire and you have a beer in your hand and the phone is off and you're having a good conversation. And you're building that relationship and learning truly with about that other person.
Well,
nothing better than that.
Nothing beats that. And it's because, again, what is it? It's family, it's relationships. I'm on my way back to the cottage right after we're done here. That time, and again, for any young people coming up right now that have young children, this is what I did. And I'll tell you, it's probably the most important decision I ever made in my life. I have 4 children and currently 5 grandchildren. My wife and I, when I was in the grind, and I was in the grind a long time, the bulk of my net worth came after late 40s, early 50s. I ran hard and I made lots of mistakes. I made thankfully more good decisions than bad ones. But here's one of the best decisions I made. I was at the dinner table at 5:00 most nights.
Very powerful.
Even if I had to leave at 7 to go out to 11 on appointments, I was there.
Uh-huh.
We went on vacation every single year. We had a little, and it's kind of cool, kind of a little emotional for me, but we had a ritual of driving down to Florida for a week or 2 weeks every March or April. Actually, it was April because we pulled the kids out of school. We never went March break. It was too crowded. Teachers always say, why don't you go when everybody else goes? I'm thinking, I'll raise my kids, you raise yours. So we went. And we always left at 4:00 in the morning and we drove down and the kids loved it. But I'll tell you, Gary, when I left the driveway, I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. It all went on my credit card. I had no idea how I was going to handle it when I got back. But you know what? I knew because I listened to all those speakers.
Uh-huh.
They told me to smell the roses. They told me what was most important in my life. And I listened to them. I took their advice. I drove down to Florida. Every single year we made those memories.
Uh-huh.
When the typical person would say you can't afford it, I made it a priority. And I'll tell you, at 62 years old with 4 kids, the dividends are this. They hang with my wife and I because they want to, not out of guilt and obligation. Quality time comes from quantity time. Yep. People will say, have quality time with your kids. No. You have to endure 26 hours with them screaming at each other in the car on the way down to Florida to get 5 minutes of gold. And we did that.
Yep.
And that I don't care if I was paying 18 or 22% of my MasterCard, the best money I ever spent was creating the freedom to be with my family and to be with my children and to speak into their lives. The money I knew I could always make later.
Yes.
The time I would never get back. If I went up to my 35-year-old son now and said, hey, get in the back of the car, we're going to Florida. He'd say, Dad, you lost it? I got my own wife. I got my own kids. No. You only have a certain window to make those memories and to build that relationship with your children. And it's the most important thing that you can do.
I can't agree with you more, And that's why I have you here again today, because of all of your lessons and your life teachings. And the same thing with me at dinner time, between 5:30 and about 7:00, couldn't get a hold of Gary because Gary's sitting down having dinner with his wife and his kids. And even if my daughter wasn't talking to my son, I'm going downstairs. No, you're not.
Yeah.
We're sitting here. We're going to figure this out. Or if we just eat in silence. But we are sitting here together as a family.
Yeah. And psychologically, that ritual, they say, is very life-giving to the kids, creates stability. Kids like the ritual. They like like you said, even if there's, in all families, there's arguments, there's this, that, but regardless, that ritual psychologically has an incredibly positive impact on the children.
Yeah. Harry James, I've enjoyed this conversation. You know what? Right after this, I am leaving tomorrow morning to go visit my daughter. She's in Mexico, Guadalajara.
All right. Give me a ticket. You need help. I'll carry your bags.
And that's what it's about, right? It's about spending time with the kids, and not because of guilt, but I want to be down there.
Yeah.
And, could I spend the money somewhere else? For sure. But I want to go spend time with her.
So what I was going to say, and I'll end with this. So my daughter, Shauna, she's the one that got me started on the Instagram.
Yeah.
So she sent me a picture of her and her family in the car at 4:00 in the morning, and they were driving to Quebec City. Yep. And that's directly 100% because of the memories that she had. So what my wife Lynn and I are doing now is we're at her farm taking care of her ducks and her chickens while they're on this road trip with their family. But
Nice.
It's amazing how those type of experiences have that kind of impact. And now she wants to create that same feeling and that same magic with her family. And that's a real honor for Lynn and I to see that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Harry, any last piece of advice that you can share before we wrap this up?
Oh, you know what? I'll go back to what I said a few times today. Live your life with a sense of urgency. If not now, when? And remember that what you think about is the most powerful thing. Protect your mindset. Feed your mindset on a daily basis. It doesn't change overnight. It changes slowly and incrementally. But if you'll do the daily work of feeding your mind with positive stuff, cramming out, don't worry about trying to replace negative habits. You can basically crowd out negative habits by constantly pouring in positive habits and positive thoughts. And over time, I think you'll get a very significant return on that.
Awesome. Harry, if people want to learn more about you, get in contact with you, how do they do that?
Harry James Live Real is my Instagram. HarryJamesEnterprises.com is our website with our little portfolio. You can also see on there all of the businesses that I failed miserably at and why, which I'm happy to share. And then, of course, on a regular basis, we do little Inspired Tuesdays at the Live Real Factory. It's really just an entrepreneurial spa to come and hang out with like-minded people. You can find those at livereal.com. And in the fall, actually, Gary, this chapter of my life, really enjoying trying to inspire and encourage. I'm not interested in becoming a full-time coach or mentor, but I am interested in hosting once a month workshops called Unencumbered to teach I'm going to call the vital signs philosophy so you can have that optimum performance no matter what the circumstances are in your life. Basically just sharing all the stuff that I've learned over the last 40 years and packaging in a way that hopefully is helpful and can be immediately
That's awesome. Yeah. Amazing. Congratulations. If you need help with anything at all, James, you know where I'm at. Reach out anytime, brother.
Gary, it's a pleasure being with you as always. You're doing it. And by the way, thank you so much for this very cool cup. I'm going to take that with me.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.
Bye. Do you know what blockchain is? How about the difference between Bitcoin and crypto? After 15 years of explosive growth across the globe, it's important not to get left behind. We are currently in the mid-90s of the internet when it comes to adoption. Want to learn more? Make sure to reach out to onebitcoin.ca broker today. Whether you have basic security questions or you need help buying Bitcoin in a safe and convenient way, onebitcoin.ca is here for you. Get started today with Canada's Bitcoin partner, onebitcoin.ca.
Thanks for listening to today's show with Gary Hibbert. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with your host on Instagram at Gary Hibbert. Until next time, stay mindful and remember, you don't have to be great to start. Just start, and you'll be on the path to being great.